This is the review for Unit 8A. It's 8A because obviously there's an 8B. We broke it up into two parts because there's really two thought processes involved in this unit. The first one is kind of setting up what the halacha is. The second one is questioning that halacha. So first we're going to set up what the halacha is being taught in our Mishnah. So the Mishnah says the following. If somebody places a kad, we're going to call it just a kad for now. It's either some sort of container. In a public place. If someone else comes along and trips on it, v'shivra, and breaks it, patur. They are patur. They are exempt from having to pay, because the owner put it in harm's way. Vim hu zakba, and let's say the person who tripped on it was injured by it. Bal hachavit chayav b'nisko. The owner of the barrel is chayav, has to pay b'nisko for the damages. This is also an example of an exception to the rule of Adam Muad Olam. Usually we say someone has to pay for the damage they do. In this case, you don't, because it's actually the owner's fault for putting the object in harm's way. The Gemara then, before discussing the actual logic of the halacha, notices something interesting about the language of the Mishnah. That is that the Mishnah is talking about one situation where a container was left out in public and someone tripped on it and broke it and was hurt by it. Yet, the beginning of the Mishnah calls this container a kad, and the end of it calls it a chavit. The Gemara says the following: Patach b'chad v'siyem b'chavit. Well, the Mishnah opened with calling this container a kad, v'siyem, and finished b'chavit. Why is that? And the Gemara then continues to show two other examples where this happens. V'tanan nami. It also says in a Mishnah. There's another Mishnah that does the same thing, and says the following: Zeh ba b'chavito. Some person's carrying a barrel. V'zeh ba b'karato, and another person is carrying their a beam. Nishbara kadosh al zeh b'karato shel zeh. And if this person's kad was broken by this person's beam, patur, then the person owning the beam is patur, because again they both had the right of way. It was just an accident. So again, the Gemara says the following: Look at this Mishnah. Patach b'chavit. This Mishnah began with chavit by calling it a chavit. V'siyem b'chad, but finished by calling it a kad. V'tanan nami. It also taught the following in the Mishnah: Zeh b'chavito shel yain. If this person is carrying a barrel, a chavit of wine, a container called a chavit, v'zeh ba b'kado, and some person is carrying a kad container shel devash of honey. What happened? Nistaka chavit shel devash. If the chavit of devash cracked, even though you just called it a kad, v'shafach et yeno, and v'shafach zed yeno, and this person who had the barrel of wine poured out the wine, v'tzilat hadevash, and saved the wine, the honey bitacho, into the barrel, now the empty barrel where the wine was. Ein lo elas charo. He only gets he only gets paid not for the wine, but for the amount of time that he put in to save the honey. Again, the details of the Mishnah are not important for you to know, even to read and translate. But the most important part is patach b'chad v'siyem b'chavit. Yet this Mishnah also started by calling something a kad. It said a kad of devash, kado shel devash, v'siyem b'chavit. But then it said chavit shel devash. So another situation. The Gemara here is pointing out two other Mishnayot that also switch around the kad and chavit. So clearly this is not just an accident. So what is this trying to teach us? Right. So this is really a kasha on the Mishnah. It's a difficulty. Why does the Mishnah do this? Why do all three of these Mishnayot do that? So Rav Papa answers, Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, Hainu kad, hainu chavit. It's to teach us that a kad and chavit, hainu kad, this is a kad, this is a chavit. Meaning a kad and a chavit are the same exact thing. The same object can be called a kad and a chavit. It's just a question of what word you choose to use. Okay, so that's very nice. The Gemara asks the obvious question, and who cares? Why are you teaching me vocabulary? Why are you teaching me, hey, there's an object that a person can call a kad and a person can call a chavit, and both of those make sense. What's the point in teaching me this? Lamai nafkami. What's the difference? So the Gemara answers, lamekach umemkar, for business purposes, that it actually might make a difference in a business transaction situation. Right? Better than business to say a transaction. Situation of transaction, of buying and selling. So when would it make a difference? So Rashi tells us the answer. L'mekach u'memkar, for transactions. What's an example? Shebiyad hamocher, it is in the hands of the seller, latet lo, to give to the buyer, ezeh sheyirtzeh, whichever one he wants. Meaning, if someone gives you a certain amount of money, $100, and says, I'm giving this $100 to purchase a chavit. I'm giving this $100 to purchase a kad. You can give either a barrel or a jar, either a kad or a chavit, and it won't make a difference. Either way, either vafilu hitnaimo chavit, even if the buyer hitnaimo made a condition with him chavit, that he wanted, quote, he said chavit, I want a chavit, and gave him the money. Dimashma Agadola, which to a lot of people would sound like it's the bigger one. No Tain Loka, the seller can give him a kad Chikatana, which is the smaller one. Now that does not mean that the seller is allowed to purposely give the guy a kad in order to rip him off. But if the person says, I would like to, there's $100, I'd like to purchase a chavit, and he takes the $100, and then he says, and then he decides to give him a jar, which is really most people call it a kad. The owner can't say, the buyer can't say, no, I changed my mind. I shouldn't say I changed my mind. The owner can't say, no. When I said chavit, I meant barrel. The guy can say, no, I took the $100 thinking that a chavit was a jar. And therefore, when I gave you the jar, you can't take the money back, and the seller gets to keep the money, unless, of course, it can be proven that he knew that the buyer meant kad. So again, meant a barrel. So again, one more time. So when would kad v'chavit be interchangeable for transaction purposes? It's in the hand of the seller to give him whatever he wants. Even if he made the condition with him that he wants a chavit, which normally implies a bigger one. No tin lo kad, he can give him a kad shikatana, which is smaller, like a jar. Now remember, this is not teaching us a halacha just about the words kad and the word chavit. It's teaching us a general principle. This is a paradigm for a situation when there are a business transaction, when there are two people involved, and each of them has a different way of thinking about it. One person, in this case, when they say chavit, thinks that it means a barrel, while the other person thinks it means a jar. And when you have a machloket about, what's the right way to think about this situation, so the halacha, the money always stays with the person who is now holding the money, which in this case is the seller who got the money from the buyer.